And I think it would be wrong to hold the Jewish community responsible for the actions of the policies of Israel.
How are young people in Jordan thinking about this right now? I mean, what is the sentiment in terms of the American unconditional support for the government of Israel?
I have to say, in one word, there's outrage. There is outrage because, for most young people, even those who maybe were against American foreign policy or whatever, or disagreed with it, we always looked up to the U.S., as a country of a democratic country with democratic values, with application of law, with freedom of speech, with, human rights, etc. And as I said, young people are now feeling extremely disillusioned. How can this be happening while the U.S. is allowing it to happen, while the rest of the world is allowing it to happen?
Well, the director of national intelligence in this country, Avril Haines, testified saying there will be a generational impact from the war in Gaza. And that was also a gesture to terror recruitment. How concerned are you that that is what may happen to some of these young people who you say are just inundated with images of what's happening?
It's not just the people who are on the extreme that are being enraged by this. It's people who are in the middle as well, people who are westernized, people who studied here, people who are suddenly just looking at the world and saying, they're so disillusioned. They're saying, clearly there are different standards, that humanitarian law is applied selectively and that our lives don't matter. And that it's okay for almost 15,000 children to be killed, 19,000 to be orphaned. It's okay for the infrastructure to be obliterated. It's okay to stop the delivery of aid and food to an entire population. That is collective punishment. It's a war crime, and it's happening. And so the young people are saying, I guess the West doesn't like us. So in my opinion, this is probably one of the largest recruitment events that we've seen in recent history.
What you are describing is what Defense Secretary Austin warned Israel about, that you could have a tactical win and a strategic loss in the long term. That's what I hear you saying, that this will lead to more terror recruitment.
Absolutely. Is this war making Israel safer? Is it making our world safer? I would argue, after 35,000 people dead, after the obliteration of the civilian infrastructure in Gaza, after the violations of so much, after the rhetoric that we're hearing, from Israeli officials calling Palestinians human animals, or saying, when the prime minister says that Palestinians are children of darkness, that they only understand the rules of the jungle, when officials say we need to find a more effective way than death to inflict suffering on Palestinians. How is that making Israel safer? I mean, how? Peace is not about politics only. It's about people. Israelis are surprised when the word genocide is used because they cannot see Palestinians as anything but as a security threat, that they deserve what's happening to them. In a poll...
They're traumatized after October 7th.
Absolutely traumatized. I understand that. And I understand that because of my own background, that I would identify with the Palestinian side more. And I challenge myself every single day to put myself in the shoes of an Israeli mother who has a child that's been taken as hostage, or any young Israeli who has been taught and who's heard of the horrible persecution that the Jewish people have had to endure in Europe. And I try to empathize and see where they're coming from. And absolutely, we need the hostages to go home as soon as possible. And we need the war to end as soon as possible so that Palestinians can go back to their homes, if they have homes left. So I understand that what happened in October 7th was traumatic and devastating for Israeli society. But the reaction to it has not helped the situation. You cannot just rely on this visceral reaction of retribution and revenge. Israel could have retaliated through surgical strikes against Hamas, but that's not what we're seeing today.
The Biden administration is also expected to report to Congress by Wednesday whether or not Israel's complying with international law in its use of U.S.-provided weapons and whether it is blocking U.S. aid. You can see our full interview with Queen Rania on our website, facethenation.com, and our YouTube page.